And if you call somebody a Native American, who exactly are you speaking about?
What I would like to know is, why was Ethiopia never colonized? Look at Drake. He's mixed race, half Jewish, half black. He can't talk about the Jewish community the way he talks about his black side. Why do we allow this?
What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be reacting to Robin Walker's visit to the Drazzy show.
When we ruled. That's, to me, I'm assuming that's your biggest, book, if I'm not wrong. Why do you think that book was so successful? Why do you think it resonated so much with people?
There were a lot of good things about that book. First of all, the idea was to put together the most comprehensive book on ancient and medieval black history ever. And at the time, I didn't really have a lot of competition, because at the time, the African American scholars who had marched way ahead in black history, they were running out of steam.
This was before my time, but I definitely see what he means. Don't get me wrong, we still have a lot of amazing black historians carrying the torch, but the 80s and 90s were on a whole nother level. I will say I am glad to see the OG Robin Walker on this new guy's podcast. Drazzy, I've never heard of him, but his show seems interesting, so I'm definitely going to be following it. And you're seeing a lot of that these days, with a lot of the veteran historians taking advantage of the new school's platforms.
You had a great scholar from Senegal, Sheikh Anta. We say Diop in English, but I think it's pronounced Diop in French. He died a long time ago. So it's almost like the baton had been passed. I claimed that baton, and what my job was simply to put together what the older scholars did, update it. So I had comprehensiveness on my side. The second thing was the right title and image. The book was going to be called When We Were Kings.
Okay.
But my publisher, at the time it was Patrick Vernon, great businessman, great man of great vision. He said, no, make it gender neutral. So if you take When We Were Kings, gender neutralize it, it then becomes When We Ruled. And then I had a brilliant idea for a front cover. You know, when people say we, they don't usually mean us. They mean them.
Them, yes, yeah.
And then you put a black woman on the front cover and people are thinking, we? Who's she?
Queen Tiye was a Kemetic queen of Nubian origin. She lived between 1398 and 1338 BC and was the daughter of Yuya and Tajuya. Her family was well respected within Kemet, and she married Amenhotep III, a noble Kemetic king. She was the stepmother of Nefertiti, mother of Akhenaten, and grandmother of Tutankhamun.
And so the front cover gets a good conversation going. And I'm just very grateful that the book hit a nerve. Still around, and it's still my most important piece of work.
Oh, that's amazing. And also I saw you in, I can't remember what episode it was, but you were in one of the episodes of Hidden Colors. Which episode was that, if you can correct me?
Number 4.
Number four. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, hold on. The name. So I Googled your name, and at the time I had not seen your face. I Googled your name and I was like, okay, yes, that's the gentleman. So does this stuff make you travel around the world?
Not as much. I expected that my career would blow up after Hidden Colors 4. That didn't happen.
I see.
What did happen was, quite independently of this, I am a member of an African Union committee.
Okay.
There's a committee called CIDO, C-I-D-O, which means Citizens and Diaspora Organization.
Okay.
I'm a part of that.
Okay.
So in that capacity, I have been to some African countries and that kind of thing, but not because of Hidden Colors. The Hidden Colors thing, I mean, big up to Tariq Nasheed Elite and so on, but it didn't do a damn thing for my career. It really didn't.
You know what? Talking about Tariq Nasheed, what's your views on Tariq Nasheed? Because he's got this thing called Foundational Black American.
Yeah.
What is that about? Because I feel like that's pure division, if I'm not gonna...
It is. But I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. This is what it is. There were too many black people from outside Africa, from outside America, going to America and playing the arse. And what it is African Americans spotted this and spotted that there's a consistent pattern. Black Caribbeans, black people from Africa going to America and being the arse. And what the FBA agenda is putting up a wall and saying, no, you guys can't be a part of this if you're going to be on that, raccoon train.
When you say playing the ass, what? Because from what I know, a lot of Africans, a lot of Caribbeans who go there, academically, they're surpassing them. And also business-wise, they're surpassing them. So who was playing the ass?
When they then use that to say, well, that means that you African Americans are lazy. Do you see?
Yes.
And then being on some right-wing conservatism, let's throw African Americans under the bus.
That is true.
And let's pretend that Jim Crow didn't happen, redlining didn't happen, breaking up of African American business districts, breaking up of African American families, the COINTELPRO didn't happen, the Iran Contras and then moving drugs into the black community didn't happen. Yeah, and there's a whole list of things continuing right up until now that the American government has done to African Americans. And so for those black people recently arrived from outside America, you all didn't face any of that. So of course you're going to be doing better than African Americans. Duh.
Yeah.
But what's happening is a lot of the people outside Black America don't respect that. And so while I'm not about division, I can't pretend to not know why Tariq Nasheed said that.
Yeah.
What it all boils down to is we don't know each other. That's the main source of all this disunity.
When you get to America, you have to understand America is a system. The first day you enter in America, it's literally having someone on your shoulder saying this, hey, you see this black American kid? He looks like you. He talks like you. He even has the same hair as you, but Charlie, he no be you. You see, look at him. He's shooting guns. He's wearing his pants this way. Oh, look at his hair. You're from Ghana, royal family, Ashanti culture. This is not you. And so the moment, as soon as you're at that airport, you disconnect. Oh, that's not me. So whatever you see him, he's suffering with, you taught from day one, oh, that's not you. Don't let the color, fool you. That's not you. Now, what you don't know is this. That same man that met you there has gone to that same black guy in America. Hey, Charlie, you see this African guy? He's not the same color hair as you. He has the same texture. But he's not you. Look at him. He's swinging on trees. Look at his stomach. He can't feed his people. Every negative thing about Africa, they will tell him. So he says, I'm not that neither. So the moment you land in America, you're like this.
Separated.
You are separated. The system is built for separation.
I can't pretend not to know why some other people are running with ADOS.
What's that one?
ADOS. American Descendants of Slaves.
Okay.
They're on the same agenda as FBA, trust me.
But they're separate.
Well, one is run by Tariq, one is run by somebody else. I think there's somebody else is Yvette Carnell, something like that.
To me, FBA makes a lot more sense. One, it doesn't include the word slavery. And two, there are American descendants of slaves that are in Africa. The capital of Sierra Leone, Freetown, and Liberia got their name because of the returned slaves.
Then you got the black Hebrew Israelites. Then you got the ones who say they're Native Americans and they were there before. Sometimes I just feel it's like there's too many categories and too many groups to really know what is really going on.
There is, and my job is very, very much to bring clarity. I am the Black History Man. My job is to bring clarity. And I do believe there is a position that all of us can agree upon.
Yeah.
And that's the vision of history that I've been working on since I've been writing. And it could put the FBAs, the ADOS, black people from outside America, black people in Africa. I've just spent 2.5 weeks in Ethiopia. Put all of us on the same side with pretty much the same vision of history, with pretty much the same pride in our history. And it can be done. It's not a hard thing to do.
Not only can it be done, it has been done. Marcus Garvey was able to unite Africans all over the world before the internet. And the way you do that is by putting black first. So you got all these differences, and we tend to put all these differences above our blackness. But when it's time to sign that check, or when the blue lights are behind you, or that gavel slams, they put your blackness over everything else, which makes it easier for them to divide and conquer. Now, we'll still have our differences, but if we put our blackness above them, then it makes it a lot more difficult to drive a wedge between it.
But I do understand and respect the differences, because I can see why a person from one country doesn't see it the same way as a person from another country.
Yeah, I agree. I want to touch on the whole Caribbeans and Africans academically and business-wise doing better. But first, I mentioned something that just sparked a thought. Were African people in the Americas before the European invasion?
That's a complicated story, but generally speaking, I think the evidence is quite strong that the answer is yes.
Okay.
Does it mean that the bulk of African Americans were there before Europeans? Of course not.
Okay.
Does it mean that Black Americans today are descended from this bulk population that was there before Europe? No. Yeah. But was there nobody there? Here's the issue, you see. There was a very famous artifact that was found. I mean, I say artifact, fossil that was found. It was found in Brazil, and the scholars gave her the name Luzia, Luzia. She's thought to be the first human being, modern human type of human, discovered in South America. You'd expect her to have been a Native American, right? Mm-hmm. She turned out to be black.
Okay.
And there's been all kinds of, well, how do we explain this? Well, how do we explain this? Well, how do we explain this? Well, there's no way you can get around the fact that certainly the first modern human South American that we can point to is this fossil Luzia. Mm-hmm. Now, but this is South America. What does this tell us about North America? No one really wants to go there. So I'm going to leave North America blank.
Okay.
Because we need more evidence to be able to answer that question. But the Luzia find is, should we say, inconvenient. But you can't pretend it's not there.
Inconvenient for who?
It changes the dynamics.
Okay.
Because now what does it mean if you call somebody a Native American? Who exactly are you speaking about?
I think this Aboriginal thing is nonsense. I think it's anti-African. I think it's destructive to our community, and it should be nipped in the bud. And anybody who engaged in any kind of critical thinking wouldn't have any difficulty finding the fallacy of it. As a matter of fact, I even question whether it's an African thing. I think that you have white supremacist organizations that plant these seeds, even give false African identities to further split the African community. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe in the global unity of African people, and anything that attempts to sabotage that, I'm opposed to. And so this Aboriginal indigenous nonsense, which is just that, to me is one of the worst things that's happened to our community in a very long time, and it needs to be called as such.
What's weird to me is what seems like a need to distance themselves from Africa. Like when black people tell me they're indigenous to America, I'm skeptical, but I'm not gonna argue. So much has been exposed in these last 2 to 5 years that right now, it don't matter what you say. I'm at least hear what you got to say. It's the we not Africans part that seems hella suspect to me, because they're not mutually exclusive. If an indigenous American gets with an African and they have a baby, is that baby indigenous American? Yes. Is that baby African? Yes. So you can embrace the indigenous side without being so hell-bent on distancing yourself from Africa? Why you would want to reject your inheritance from the richest continent on the planet when you don't have to?
Much of it, I think, stems from an anti-Africanism. I think that there are people in our community who would rather be called turds in the toilet than an African. I do believe that, because we've been taught to be so ashamed of Africa. And so I think that feeds this Aboriginal indigenous nonsense.
Now, I want to touch on the Caribbeans and the Africans who go to America and excel academically and excel business-wise. We know the reason why, because you just explained it, in terms of some of the deprivations and the intentional, stifling of the Black American family, Black American business, and you name it. But not all of them can be affected by this. There's always got to be certain people who rise above it, regardless of what the situation is. It's just the natural nature thing. Weeds grow through gardens, you name it. Why do you think it is that a country like Jamaica or Africa, where they too have had their deprivations, had their colonialism, had their slavery, why do they go somewhere and tend to excel amongst people who also have gone through it?
Because you're not comparing like with like, that's why.
Okay.
A lot of us think we are comparing like with like. You're not. Let me explain. Generally speaking, Caribbeans in America, not the ones in the Caribbean, but the ones in America, will represent the top 10%.
I see.
So if you're really going to compare like with like, you have to compare the top 10% of Caribbeans with the top 10% of African Americans.
Okay.
And when you compare the two, the African Americans are slaughtering us, bro. It's not even close. It's a massacre. But what it is we compare the top 10% with your average African American. You're not comparing like with like. And if you compare your average African American, you're 51, you've got 1 to 100 and Mr. number 51. Number 51 is richer by a factor of 20 than your average Jamaican. Do you see? What happens is because we live in a world where people don't really have full pictures, you can take the exception, use that to smack around African Americans' faces. This guy just got off the boat. He's doing better than you. Not realizing, but for my man to have got on the boat in the first place, he wasn't typical of the country that he was coming from. He was in the top echelons of that country. Do you see?
Yeah.
And the same is true also with people from Africa going to Black America. So if we're going to compare the top 10%, let's compare the top 10%. And when we do that, African Americans are slaughtering us.
I'll add on to that and say it's also like a mindset thing, because so many Black people around the world see their way to make it, their only way to make it is to escape the environment that they're currently in. It's like they're trapped. I can't talk for the Caribbeans, but I know a lot of Africans, once they get to the US, it's like a sense of, I escaped, I got here. So it's like a fresh start, a new lease on life, if you will. I'll let this young brother talk. He's talking about America, but the same could be said about Black people everywhere, really.
But let me get this right. Us as Black people, we done been through slavery. We done been through oppression, segregation, depression. We done went through racist cops killing all our leaders. We done went through the government killing all our leaders. The government putting a bunch of shit in all our food we eat so they break us down. We done went through getting put in certain motherfucking areas that we're all at that are poverty riddled so we can't get nowhere. We done went through getting dropped in motherfucking jungles, and then when we turn the lines and eat everybody, didn't we go to jail for it? We done went through legal slavery, mental slavery, motherfucking financial slavery, institutionalized slavery. But why, when it come to our race, we done been through all that, got over that, and now we treat each other like the enemy. Niggas want to get rich and go move with the white people, instead of getting rich and making their whole community so good that it's like the white people's and our property value is raised. No nigga wants to work on niggas no more. They just want to say fuck their whole city and move out of it instead of getting it better. And we still put each other through shit.
I couldn't agree more. And I believe the solution is a perspective that I got from my mom. I remember one day she was talking to one of my cousins back home in Africa, and I guess he wasn't doing well in school or was getting into trouble or something. And he was talking about how shit would be so much better once he gets to America or UK. And she said, a tree grows where it's planted. And by that she meant we as animals can move, and that's why we're called animals. But what do you do if you can't move? Or what do you do in the interim? And being able to move isn't possible for everybody. So while you're in that position where you are, you got to be like a tree. A tree, wherever that acorn or seed falls, it has to thrive there. It has no choice. So I'm not encouraging you to stay in a situation that's bad if you have the opportunity to go somewhere better, but what do you do while you're there?
Now, how do you feel about the concept that Ethiopia was the only country in Africa not to be colonized by Europeans? See, I know people that told me they were colonized by the Arabs. Is that true?
It is.
But what about the message though? Like now,
Exactly.
let's be honest.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
have you heard of Sexy Red? Is her name Sexy Red?
We had this conversation, didn't we? We had this conversation, didn't we? Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about.
I suspect you could probably do that for many, many other African countries too. And when that happens, the game will change completely, because